Salve Discipoli. I'm just here working at 9 o'clock at night with Pascal because it's the only time we can work. Alright, so I reviewed the first 3 sections of the Gallic Wars the other day, and that's where we learned about how Gaul is in 3 sections, and we learned about some rivers and which direction is north, and the conspiracy of Orgetorix to take over the Helvetii tribe and convince them to leave their territory and invade the rest of Gaul. And he did this by visiting a lot of different other tribes, including the Sequani and the Aedui, and he made marriage alliances. So we pick back up in 1.4. So this matter, the conspiracy of Orgetorix, was announced to the Helvetii. And then in their own customs, in accordance with their customs, they had Orgetorix plead his case from chains. So it's kind of like guilty until proven innocent. He goes to court and he's all chained up, and he has to try to convince them that he's that he's innocent. So that's cool. If he was condemned, the punishment that they would follow is that they would burn him with fire. So they picked a day for having the trial, which is case, like right here, causa. And Orgetorix secretly announced to all of his family, and that includes very extended family and alliances and stuff. And so that was about 10,000 people, and he had them all gathered together at this trial. Also, in addition, he had all of his clients and people that were in his debt, because they owed him bronze, that's ire, which he had a great number of, so more than 10,000 people. And they all came to the same place. And so he was hoping that he'd be able to steal himself away from the trial. But the state of the Helvetii took up weapons and tried to summon him to the court. However, that huge number of people came out of the fields, and Orgetorix died in the midst of that battle between his people and the Helvetii state's people. And there is some suspicion, as the Helvetii think, that he killed himself, basically, took on death for himself. So that's 1.4. In 1.5, after his death, the Helvetii still did what they had decided to do, which was to depart their borders. You know how they were going to make preparations for 2 years and then migrate. So they make preparations. For this matter, they thought they were now prepared. And all of their towns, about 12 in number, and their villages, Wikos, about, I think this is 400, I'll double check, and the rest of the private buildings that weren't in towns or villages. They burn all of those. And all of the grain, except for what they could carry with themselves. So they brought as much as they could carry, but all the rest of the grain, they burn. So there's no leftovers. So that if there's no hope of returning home, they would be more prepared for all dangers, for undertaking all dangers. And then the amount they could carry with them was 3 months worth of ground grain for each person to take from home. The Helvetii persuades some other tribes, that one, Tulingi, it's fun to say, and these guys, to also do the same plan. So not just the Helvetii, but these other little tribes joined them. And all their towns and villages were burned, and they set out together as one with them. And the boys show up. And the Boii tribe lived across the Rhine, so they were actually German, I believe. And they attacked this other region. and then joined themselves as allies to the Hawari. Moving right along. 1.6. There were two journeys or two paths by which paths the Hawari were able to leave home. One path was through the territory of the Sequani tribe, and this path was narrow and difficult. Between Mount Jura, which is a famous mountain in the Alps still, I don't really recall the modern name, but I'll look that up, and the Rhone River. So this narrow path went between a mountain and a river. And it was hard to even have carriages go one by one along this path. And the mountain was super tall and hangs over, so probably avalanches. And it also meant that few people could prevent the Hawari from crossing, because it would be such a narrow point. It'd be easy to defend, and the Hawari would be stuck. And the other way they could get out of their territory was through our province. And that'd be Caesar's Roman provinces in northern Italy and southern France, which was much easier and quicker, so they're going to take that one. And it went between the borders of the Helvetii and this other group who were recently pacified. So they had already been defeated by the Romans, therefore not a threat to the Helvetii. And there was the Rhone River flowing again, which was in none places was crossable by a ford. That means in some places there was a ford. They could walk across it. There is a town which is the last town of the Allobroges and is closest to the Helvetian borders. That's Geneva. Maybe you've heard of it. From that town, Geneva, there's a bridge that crosses over the Rhone River to the Helvetii. They decided to persuade the Allobroges, even though the Allobroges were favorable to the Roman people, but they thought that they could force the Allobroges to let the Helvetii pass through their borders. Everything was prepared, with everything having been prepared for setting out. Ablative absolute. They name a day on which day they would go to the bank of the Rhone River. All of them would gather together. And this day was the fifth day before the fifth day before the calends of April. So around now. And it was in the year when Piso and Gabinius were consuls. Phew. Making progress. Last one. So when this was announced to Caesar, and this being that they, the Helvetii, were trying to make a journey through our province, the Roman part of Gaul, he hurried from the city, that would be Rome, the only city that matters, and set out to go meet them. And he did as great journeys as possible, so 20 miles a day and stuff like that, which is a lot if you're walking. Maybe more if he was riding a horse, I don't know. And he went into farther Gaul, so that's Gaul on the other side of the Alps from Italy. And then he came to Geneva. From his province, he got the greatest number of soldiers that he could command, because there was only one legion in this area of Gaul across the Alps. And the bridge, which headed towards Geneva, he ordered to be cut down. So when the Helvetii found out, were made certain of his arrival, that would be Caesar's arrival, they sent ambassadors to him, the very most noble ambassadors of the Helvetii state. These guys, and they were kind of princes, basically. They had the place of princes, And they said that in their mind they had no ill will for their journey through the province. And they just didn't have any other way. They had no other way to go, which is a lie. But they're lazy. And then they ask by Caesar's permission that they be allowed to go through. And Caesar, because he had in memory, Lucius Cassius, the consul who was killed, and his army was driven away by the Helvetii and forced to go under the yoke, which is a sign of humiliation. And all the stuff Caesar's remembering happened about 50 years before Caesar was dealing with them. But he's still holding a grudge. So he remembers this historical event and decides not to trust the Helvetii 50 years later. So he didn't think he should allow it. And it was not a good idea to have men of hateful mind with the ability given to them to go through a province to make a journey, because they would not be able to keep themselves from injury and bad doing or wrongdoing. Like, if he let them go through the Roman province, they could not prevent themselves from causing issues. So he wanted to get a little bit of space. He just wanted to buy time while the soldiers he had ordered to appear could come together. So he answered to the ambassadors that he needed 1 day for deliberating. And if they wanted anything, they should return on the Ides of April, which is today. Awesome. I hope this is helpful. Talk to you later. Walete.